Kwekskina, ici Alexandre, accompagné de mon collègue André du domaine. Je pense I think we'll have a guest in English. So, on va parler un peu bilingue en ce moment. Fait que, dans le fond, on va accueillir Charlie Gordon Saali Kuata de Tupiq ACT pour nous parler d'un peu de son entreprise de cirque Inuit. Fait que, André, si tu peux en parler un peu plus de notre collaboration avec les autres?
Oui, ben écoute, je pense que quand Saali sera là, on pourra parler plus longuement de cette quand même initiative très spéciale de fonder une troupe de cirque, de performance circassienne à Montréal, une troupe Inuit. Alors, avec le fondateur qui est quand même quelqu'un d'entreprenant. Alors, on va avoir l'occasion de le rencontrer. Sinon, hier, on a lancé la programmation de présence autochtone. On peut trouver le site web, sur le site web, le communiqué où on annonce la programmation. Et donc, c'est un début. La programmation détaillée arrive. Beaucoup de gens y travaillent. Et on me dit que ce sera très beau. Alors, moi aussi, j'ai hâte de découvrir ce nouveau site web complètement reconstruit, complètement rebâti. Et donc, il y a pas mal de nouveautés cette année. Alors, notamment, le site extérieur, on revisite le site extérieur pour lui donner un coup de jeune. Alors, attention, on ne va pas tout reprendre à zéro. Par exemple, le grand tipi là, qui est emblématique, lui, c'est sûr, on le garde, il est toujours là dans toute sa majesté, si je puis dire, si je peux employer cette expression royale pour un site autochtone qui n'est pas très versé en principe sur le royalisme. Mais reste que oui, alors donc le grand tipi toujours là. Par contre, on repense tous les éclairages. Et notamment, on conçoit une structure intérieure qui va permettre de projeter en ombre chinoise animée des motifs tirés de l'imaginaire visuel autochtone ou de récits des Premières Nations qui pourront être donc vus sur la surface, sur les surfaces du tipi. Donc, ça va être quelque chose d'assez exceptionnel. Puis les éclairages autour vont être repensés. Il va donc avoir... et bon, c'est pareil pour tout le site. Il y a quelques nouveaux éléments, des revêtements, des parcours qui sont repensés. Et ça va être encore plus beau que jamais. Et ça va vraiment être une expérience pour le festivalier qui vient se plonger dans l'univers autochtone. Déjà, sur le plan de tout cet imaginaire visuel, ça va être formidable. On a toujours Christine Siwi Waranodoat, une amie de présence autochtone depuis des lustres. Alors, Christine, c'est toujours la grande inspiratrice pour le site extérieur. C'est elle qui a imaginé les deux figures des géants, Iwaskea et Tawiskaronk, qu'on va retrouver d'ailleurs dans les installations de présence autochtone. Et aussi, cette année, qui nous amène différents motifs qui seront utilisés sur des bannières, sur des peintures au sol et aussi sur des projections murales. Alors, tout ça est en train de tranquillement de se tisser, de se coordonner, de se fabriquer. Et dès le 10 août, là, la magie va exploser Et ce sera une explosion de joie, de bonheur et de découverte sur la place des festivals. Évidemment, il y aura, comme toujours, la grande scène québécoise, des grands concerts. Alors, on a annoncé, il y aura Béatrice Dire, hein, qui est aussi une Inuit, qui sera là. Il y aura Léonard Summers, ça va être pour le concert d'ouverture le 10. Ça va être un beau moment et également durant la journée. Alors là, il y aura plein d'animations durant la journée. Et c'est là que, comme toujours, il y aura les tambours, indispensables à tout grand rassemblement autochtone, surtout dans ces grands espaces urbains, hein, quand les membres de Northern Voice ou de Buffalo Hat Singers battent le tambour, ça résonne très, très fort et c'est automatiquement, hein, on dit que c'est un battement de cœur et effectivement, il semble bien que tout le monde veut rejoindre le rythme et le lieu d'où provient cette formidable résonance. Alors donc, ils seront là durant la journée, mais vont se rajouter cette année des éléments très spéciaux. On va avoir de la visite en cours de semaine de Kalinia. Alors, Kalinia, c'est le nom original qui a été traduit en français par Caraïbe. Mais le nom que les Autochtones eux-mêmes se donnent, c'est Kalinia. Et ceux que nous aurons l'honneur de recevoir viennent de Guyane française. Et donc, la grande visite. Et si Air Canada ou d'autres compagnies aériennes n'ont pas perdu leur grand tambour en cours de route, on aura le plaisir de les entendre et de les voir performer sur la place des festivals durant la journée. Et aussi, dans toutes ces performances, on a toujours aussi nos marionnettes géantes qui ont été fabriquées en atelier par des jeunes artistes autochtones. C'est vraiment toujours formidable de les voir se balader sur le site. Et bien sûr, on aura des performances par le tout nouveau, la toute nouvelle, devrais-je dire, troupe Inuit, Tupiq, dont on va parler dans quelques instants. Alors, sinon, dans les concerts notables, il y a Nikamotan Neu qui revient. Donc, alors là, il y a une trentaine d'artistes associés. Ça va être le grand show. Ça sera attendez que je recalcule, le 11 août, donc le jeudi. Sur la grande scène québécoise, toujours, à 20h30, à 8h30, pour ceux qui aiment mieux cette référence, à 8h30 du soir. Et là, ça va être magnifique. Puis, on a annoncé hier, hein, vous ne le trouverez pas dans les annonces parce que c'est tout à fait nouveau. On a annoncé hier que Claude Mackenzie, hein, le fameux autre Kashtin va être du show. Alors ça va être un moment magnifique, ce retour sur scène de Claude Mackenzie. Et alors les Inuits vont être bien à l'honneur aussi parce que le samedi, hein, il va y avoir Mathieu qui va lancer son nouvel album. Et ça sera donc là aussi un beau moment. On va avoir Mackenzie qui sera là en première partie, toujours sur la scène québécoise, samedi. Samedi, ça va être le 13 août. Et soyez pas superstitieux, ça va bien aller et ça va être une soirée formidable. Et puis, j'en saute encore une journée, parce qu'on reste dans le monde Innu. Omer Saint-Onge, un Innu de Maliotenam, a écrit une pièce sur sa propre vie, un récit autobiographique comme quelqu'un qui a passé au travers la terrible épreuve de l'enfermement dans un pensionnat autochtone et qui a dû après entreprendre un long périple de guérison pour se rétablir. Et c'est toute son histoire qu'il qu'il met en scène, et c'est lui qui sera sur scène aussi pour la dire et l'interpréter. Alors, c'est une production de Inuit, la troupe autochtone, une des troupes autochtones de Montréal bien connue. Et donc, on est très heureux de travailler avec Inuit, avec Xavier Huard, le metteur en scène. Et c'est quand même un défi, hein, parce que Homer veut relever de prendre quelque chose qui est de nature très intime et de le faire rayonner au cœur d'un grand espace dans la ville. C'est aussi une façon d'en faire un discours historique, donc de tourner la page en passant du ton d'une confession plus intime à quelque chose qui est un grand récit historique, parce que son histoire recoupe des 150 000 autres histoires au Canada. Et bon, on le sait avec la visite qu'on a d'Italie. Je ne devrais pas dire d'Italie, je devrais dire de Rome. Donc, la visite qu'on a présentement, c'est certain que sa prestation, son parcours, son témoignage, ce moment du 15 août en soirée va être quelque chose de très fort et de très important. Alors, et puis, je souligne, ça va être quand même un moment solennel et quand même qui est empreint d'une certaine tristesse, quoique la conclusion est heureuse, hein, c'est la guérison accomplie. Il y a Juste pour rire qui nous prête des chaises. Alors, les gens, c'est fantastique, hein, parce que ça, c'est un signe de collaboration entre les festivals. Un esprit qui n'existait pas avant, et assez curieusement, c'est beaucoup la COVID qui a permis ça, parce que il y a eu plusieurs rencontres organisées, soit par le REMI, hein, le regroupement des événements majeurs internationaux, dont Présence autochtone est maintenant un membre associé, ou encore par le Forum des festivals qui a été mis sur pied par la Ville de Montréal et le partenariat du quartier des spectacles. Pendant la pandémie, donc, au travers ces organisations, ces regroupements, devrais-je dire, de festivals, les directeurs de festivals, on se rencontrait souvent pour discuter, pour voir comment on allait organiser l'après-COVID, comment on allait chercher à être plus conforme aux idéaux écologiques et d'avertissement. Alors, ça a créé toute une dynamique qui a été extrêmement profitable pour le Festival international Présence autochtone, parce qu'on le sait, on a toujours été, par la force des choses, et certains diraient c'est normal, vous êtes autochtone, on a toujours été un peu marginalisés. Je me souviens d'un voyage à Maniotévam, dans les débuts du festival, on avait dit à Philippe Mackenzie, autour d'un thé chez lui, il m'a dit, on a de la misère. Il avait dit, vous voulez travailler avec les Autochtones, pensez-vous que ça va bien aller si facile? Alors donc, là, on pourrait dire, on est sorti de la misère. C'est-à-dire que là, maintenant, il y a quand même une belle reconnaissance. Il y a encore du chemin à faire pour vraiment... mais c'est bon, on a encore des défis devant nous à relever pour que le festival remplisse toutes ses promesses et devienne ce qu'il doit être. un grand événement. Il faudrait avoir des budgets papaux. Hein? Quand je vois ce que ça coûte, la visite de notre tiaré visiteur, j'aimerais bien chausser ses mules là, pour avoir accès à des fonds aussi importants pour faire valoir les cultures autochtones. Je pense que sa visite coûte aussi cher que ce qu'ont coûté les 33 années de présence autochtone à Montréal. Donc, c'est aussi, on comprendra, une invitation que je lance aux donateurs et aux bailleurs de nous appuyer encore mieux et davantage pour qu'on puisse faire avancer cet événement qui a encore beaucoup de potentiel de développement.
Je pense que la visite de la pape a coûté plus cher que les 32 ans d'existence de Tel en Vue.
Voilà.
Fait que Saali est avec nous, il est en backstage.
Parfait.
On va faire rentrer.
Comment
c'est bon. Oui, Saali. So usually what we do is at the beginning I present myself, and we already did that, but now you can present yourself with what you do and what you're doing right now.
So I'll just start in my language very quickly. Wow, a little dark here. Sorry. Nakumiyo kilo hatotin titsileratit Saali Kuata ngubunga pinsusung ngubunga Tupiq ACT. So very quickly, I'm very grateful and thankful that to be included in this podcast. Sorry I arrived a little bit late. I had some other obligations that went on a little bit longer. But yeah, I work as a board member as well as a participating artist with Tupiq ACT, which is a nonprofit organization based here in Montreal, as well as basing our operations from Nunavut, because that's where we're from.
D'accord, Nick, Saali. It's been a great pleasure to have you with us in this weekly podcast. So, yeah, I remember a few years ago, a video you did in your community. I think it was in Kuujjuaq, if I remember well. And you were speaking, and it was kind of bold at this time. So young person speaking, I will be the founder of an Inuit Circus Troupe. I don't know if everybody believed you at this time. Well, your sincerity was obvious, but I think many people were not sure if so ambitious program could be accomplished. And now you have done it. So first of all, congratulations, bravo. But can you speak about all this road from the what was a good and a fantastic but crazy idea, and now, as crazily as it may seem, what is now a reality?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it's like starting from like a long time ago. Like I've been doing circus for 9 years, and people is like, the first question I always get is like, an Inuit circus troupe, like how do you guys get to do circus that far in the north? And I really had to thank the social circus program called Sihinik, and which is a program that's been running roughly around 20 years in the north, providing instructors, coaches, materials, and equipment that they send up north through the KRG program, which was like when it first started, was like a collaboration with KRG, Makavik, and Cirque du Soleil, and they really want they really had the Cirque du Monde aspect to bring a circus all over the world. And the world, the Arctic is a very crucial part of the world So and as we were people living in the north, and they just figured, like, why don't we give this opportunity for youth? And like I said, I first started 9 years ago, and it really became a very deep-seated passion for me. It gave me a lot of opportunity to express myself, to experiment how the human body can be pushed, either that being flying in the air, or walking on stilts, or doing hand-to-hand and acrobatics during a show, and going through the step-by-step process to learn all these things. So that's essentially where this kind of project kind of came to fruition. Is I typically attribute this social circus program being the seed for Tupiq ACT to exist as it is today. And just to a little bit go on a little bit more, is like every year that, like I said, there was a social circus summer camp where different youth from different parts of the area from Nunavik came to one community to participate for 1 week to learn new circus skills, to continue on doing circus. And that's 1 week out of 52 weeks in the year. So all of us, every time we wait for the summer to come, so we can go to a community, work with other youth, work with circus instructors, and by the end of the week, we produce a show that we share for the community for free. And and all year we'd wait for this program to come back, and every year that we came back together as youth and instructors, we always joked, like, why don't we just start our own company and become professional circus artists and do what we want to do, like full-time artists. And it was a joke for us, like, it was like a dream too, but we'd always just like laugh and continue on with the week, because it's a very like heavy week of like bringing 40 youth, teaching how to do circus, and it's a very social aspect. So we welcome everyone, come as you are, and just a very open space where people can feel comfortable to do what they want to do. And yeah, so Tupiq ACT is literally a byproduct of the second summer camp, and all the artists and members and my co-founders, we all came from this program, and we all met through this program, and we all became very close, to be able to work together, do what we want, and create a clear vision into how we want to execute it. So and Tupiq has been running roughly around 3 years now, mainly working off of arts grants, because we're recognized as a nonprofit organization, and that's what helps us really keep going is grant work.
Well, it's easier than it was, but I know that it's not so easy a task to have an organization to be recognized as a non-profit and to get the grants. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of determination to be straight and follow the path to the success. And so really, I am full of admiration that you have that you did that. It's very amazing. And also, what I think is interesting also is you have incorporated traditional Inuit games into the circus performance. Can you explain how you made that mix?
Yeah, for sure. It's for every production that we do, or every kind of creation that is produced from this company, we really try to implement a lot of our identity, a lot of our culture and practices onto the stage to share with audiences, and also to help strengthen our bond with what we have, to our identity, to our land, to our language. And so that's really implemented a lot into how we go on in doing circus, which includes Inuit games, drum dancing, throat singing, storytelling. And in the video that you see here is Christopher Angdeluk teaching youth and students at the Quebec Circus School doing Inuit games.
Is it in the south or in Nunavik?
This video was filmed in Quebec City at the Quebec Circus School, so it's in the south. And a lot of these games, they're competition. They're also played for fun, and they're determining strength, agility, control, and also the connection between mind and the body. And also, it's a competition in the north that happens.
And you said you incorporate stories too. How can you explain a bit more? Which stories and how you work to have it incorporated in your performance?
Yeah. So since this company is created by Inuit for Inuits, and all of our members and board members are all Inuit, and we all grew up in the north, more or less. I moved to the south for the first time when I was about 18 years old for college. But when I was growing up, I remember hearing stories either in Institute class or stories from elders about survival stories, folk tales, legends, and in Institute we call them unikatuat, which is like the very old stories, the stories that were like since time immemorial, since like these are stories that have been passed down orally because we're oral storytellers. That's how, like, we didn't have any written language, we didn't have any script. So all the stories that we hear today and that we play on stage have been passed down from generation to generation since the beginning of time. And a lot of these stories are very theatrical, like they're very like imaginative. Like when you hear them from an elder, and you can see like the things happening. And a lot of these stories, they include monsters or spirits of the land, either being like shape-shifting spirits that turn from human to bird to caribou to whatever they want to shapeshift into, or stories of invisible people, of the shadow people, giants, sea monsters, goddesses and gods, and the celestial beings that allow us to exist in this universe. So, and since they're very imaginative and very detailed descriptions of like how they came to be, it was very easy for us as a company to embody these stories because they're within us, they're in our minds and their bodies. And we're able to talk about them, remember like which part struck us most, and see like how can we use our bodies and use the stage to tell them in a way that we want to tell them, while complementing our technique and the skills that we learned through circus. How can we merge these two things together? And in a lot of ways, they were very complementary, because when I watch videos of like old documentaries that are very dated, but they capture innate life very well. Like when you see the youth playing, or the mothers juggling, or throat singing, or stories being told, you see, like I can see like how we're able to marry these two things together of Inuit culture and the circus, contemporary circus.
This is very interesting. Yeah. Did you get some inspiration too? What was going on the other side of the James Bay? Because we know in Nunavut they have Art Cirque, they have Zacharias Kunuk with those wonderful films, especially one of his beginning film, Kagik, when we see people meeting in the big house with competition.
Yeah.
Did you get some inspiration for from that other part of the Inuit land?
Yeah, I like, we're all recognized as Inuit throughout the circumpolar world. There's Nunavik and Nunavut. We pretty much speak the same language. Even with Greenland, I can understand a little bit of their dialect, but of course they're very different. There's some words that are very different, but if you look at the fundamentals of how we lived, before colonization and after colonization, you see that we had the hayak, we had the igloo, we had the language, we had the people, and the same very similar clothes. So I see that there's no though we live in different territories and we might be divided by invisible borders, but I can go to Nunavut and I've worked with Art Circ before, and they're very inspiring. They're very strong. They've been running for a very long time. They're the reason why we call ourselves the first Nunavik Inuit Circus Troupe, and they're the first Inuit Circus Troupe in the world. So it's a very funny, playful kind of competition that we have with each other. We really enjoy working with together, but at the same time we're recognizing it's a very competitive entertainment scene. But at the same time, we recognize each other, and we implement our artists into them, and they implement their artists into our company. And we do I've since working with Art Circ and creating this company. There's lots of collaboration and inspiration coming from, because I see that they have a model that's easily replicated, because we've done it, maybe in different types of execution, and also different people that have executed it. But there's a lot of source material from NFB. There's a lot of material from Inuit who have shared their stories, have it taped or have it written, and also lots of drawings. Inuit are very visual artists, so there's sculptures, stories, drawings, and so on and so forth. And of course, there's the relationship with so-called Canada, where you mentioned the James Bay, and right now we're working on a project to accentuate the facts and the effects of the hydroelectric dams that have been implemented in the north, because we do have very powerful rivers. Water is a really great source of renewable energy, but in a lot of northern communities, we're still using diesel, petroleum generators to power our communities, and yet we have all these electric dams that are powering a lot of Quebec, but mostly being outsourced to America. I often joke that Times Square is being lit by Inuit rivers, Inuit waterways.
Yeah, what you say is found a lot of echo, finds a lot of echo in the southern part of Canada also, because Alexandre comes from an Atikamekw community, and they have been one of the first to be dammed by the hydroelectric project, and it still have a lot of impact of the community. And we know Kichisagik and Anishinaabe community, where they are just beside the dam, and they have no electricity in the village. That's really a terrible reality. And of course, there is a lot of work to do to change this situation. And I am happy that as artists or cultural leader, we carry on this ecological thinking. We are not just there to be nice, cool, and beautiful. What we are, of course, but we carry an ancestral tradition in the modern world, but also we carry a strong message from our origin.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One thing that often pops up in my mind when I'm just living in the urban center of of Jojage, being surrounded by a lot of like non-indigenous, non-native community, like, and also when I go to manifestations or if I'm creating shows and I start talking with the audience, how they become really captivated by the stories that we tell on stage, and with the fact that this is created by Inuit for Inuit. And one thing that often pops up in my mind is like, how come is it that it's indigenous people that are constantly reminding the settlers, like, we are still here, like that phrase always, that phrase and message is very important, but at the same time I'm wondering, like, why do we always have to remind them whose land they're standing on, and which languages were here and which people were here first, and how come that we're always just kind of like squandered away and dismissed in a way that's like very ill-respected.
Yeah, it's come far away. The theory of colonization in America, in the whole hemispheric part of the world, was the terra nullius, which means in Latin that a land of nobody. And,
yeah.
And the one who, this was the Pope who directly gave his benediction to that theory. So it is not really, in my own mind, not really a big. It's a very small step what we have here from now of the visit of François, because it is, well, some people within the church had done bad things, but it did not yet, maybe he will, I hope, say that the church itself has been very involved in the colonial enterprise and give it its ideological thought to be carried on. So that's really important. But let's go back to your work, and now what I think for many people, when we have the map in mind, you are speaking of Tupiq with Nigludik.
Yeah.
You are speaking of Kuujjuaq, where you come from. You are speaking of Montreal, where you live now.
Mm-hmm.
And how do it seems to me it's almost a circus performance to be able to connect all those place, land, and persons. Is now the Tupiq artists are living in Montreal? What is the link with the Kuujjuaq, our third Inuit community, and how it works? It's all sound very mysterious to me.
Yeah. So the inner workings and the strings that are connecting north and south. You've already mentioned I'm from Kuujjuaq, but a lot of our artists, we come from many different communities. Like some of the base artists that work nearly on a daily basis are from some communities to name are Gangsuk, Puminituk, and Kuujjuaq. And in Nunavik alone, we have 14 communities, and we really want to encourage youth that have an interest in circus, a passion in circus, and want to have a chance to pursue circus. I encourage them to work with us. And the connection that we have in Montreal is a very old, newish connection. Because we don't have well-equipped medical centers in the north to treat serious medical conditions that people may have, either it's accidents or health problems. A lot of times, like, we send Inuit down south to either Montreal or Ottawa, and it changes whichever region you're from. Mainly if you're in Nunavik, you'll be sent into Montreal because that's within the same province. But if you're living in Nunavut, whichever community you're from, you're either sent to like Winnipeg or Ottawa to be treated for any medical reason that you may need to be treated for. So that's a very old connection, but still very new. And when I say still very new, it's like comparing and contrasting between colonization of Turtle Island. A lot of the First Nations, like, you know, the settlers went from east to west with their railroad, and then it was only after World War II that when the government and the church really started looking north. And if you look at the map of like the timeline of residential schools, like most of the residential schools and federal day schools that were opened in the north, they only opened after 1950. And you can also see a lot in the actions that were taken. One of the first big ones was like the dog slaughter, and also the tuberculosis ships. That's when Inuit really having becoming tangled with the federal government. And you know, and that's what would happen. Like, you know, it would be taken from the north, sent down south, either to one of the larger urban centers, and either be treated or go to school. And that's essentially kind of like the connection that I see that's happened, and a connection that's constantly happening today. Of course, well, the relationship, it's very a lot of gray areas, but you know, that's why we're here. And also the reason why that the Tupiq is in Montreal is because Montreal is considered one of the circus international hubs for circus. So, and here we have the opportunity to, you know, have our own space, train and practice together, have coaches, easy access to materials, and also we have to consider like airfare costs a lot. So being able to send a lot of the artists that are based here in Montreal up north and send all the equipment, that's, you know, we're talking large sums of money. And finding that sum is, like you said, a lot of work through grants or finding contracts with different Inuit communities or different Inuit organizations to see us and recognize us and want that kind of entertainment in the north. And of course, since we started in 2019, we had the pandemic in 2020 and still going on. So it's created a lot of hurdles and barriers to be able to tour and to do what we really want to do.
I often quote, what's his name? Alexandre Edmond, le jeune graphiste atikamekw qui a travaillé avec nous.
Mais qui?
Ah, Terry Awashish, ok. Merci, Gabriel. I often quote Terry Awashish, who is a young Atikamekw who studied in Montreal, and now he's back in his own community. And he was studying at the university. And once, and it really struck me, in the panel, he says, you know, the Atikamekw land is where we get what you need to heal, to feed ourselves, to want. So if I come to Montreal for any need, if I go to university, if I go to hospital or other agency, Montreal is part of my territory. And it goes with and if I quote him often, it is because it is how we have, this is the vision of Montreal we have developed here at Terres en Vue, because we think Montreal is geographically and spiritually a meeting place, because it is an island, and the island in most of the creation stories of First Nations is the first land. Right? It is the land because it has been carried on by mammals diving at the bottom of the water and brought some earth and spiritual being will take this handful of earth to make the land we inhabit now. So Montreal is like a microcosm, the representation of the universe, and it is the middle of all the natural highways, all the rivers arrive in this island, and there is a mountain in the middle. So obviously, since the beginning of time, it has been seen as a meeting place and a place that has this vocation, obviously. And now, I think when we see I am not surprised to have that perspective, to have Inuit part of this land, because it is a common ground for the Aboriginal people of all America now, because this island has still the same vocation, but nowadays it's not only, it's a larger circle, obviously, around, and this is when I see Tupiq, I said, this is part of this land, and you are part of this land, obviously.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I have to mention, like, other reasons that we do come here is also for education. Like I said, I moved here for college, and that's a very true kind of, if you want to pursue post-secondary education, we don't have universities or college in Nunavik, or not many options, of course. So often, if you want to go to Anglophone college or Francophone, we come here to Montreal. And as for this being a meeting place, a very crucial meeting place for all Indigenous peoples, like Inuit are definitely a part of this demographic, because they're like, I only learned this recently, is like there's a lot of Inuit here. Like visually, I can see if I go out on the street or go to different organizations, there's a lot of Inuit. I can see a lot of, like, some of my family members are here, cousins. People travel here obviously for cheaper goods, but there's also a very large unhoused demographic, people that live here, that are a large community of Indigenous, and as well as a lot of Inuit. So one number I've heard being floated around is like 2,000 Inuit, either living here in the city, working here in the city, being part of organizations or different companies that here in the city, or even the greater Montreal area. There's really a lot of Inuit here. So this is a very crucial point for a lot of people, and Inuit don't fall short of that representation.
This is a completely another subject, but with Alexandre, we were discussing how we would say bienvenue, welcome, in Aboriginal languages. And so, wow. Hey.
Is that your kid?
Yeah, this is my son. He's a surprise guest. He's 4 months old now. Shouldn't be looking at screens, but this is Silake. Silake is his name. He carries the name of, well, he holds his true original name, as well as 3 names of my ancestors. Well, 2 of them being my parents, and another one being my great-great-grandfather.
Will you call him grandfather?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as my father named me after his father. Sometimes he's passed on now, but it gives me a lot of comfort in my mind to call him my father as well as my son. Because it's very funny, because he's much older than I am, or was a lot older than I am, and it goes with traditional Inuit naming practices, is to name our descendants after those who have already passed, or honor those who are alive with permission to name them after them. So he's my father, my mother, and as well as my great grandfather.
I think you have the same practice in my community too. Like Alexandre, it's come from an elder, an Enskemek elder. And my surname, my nickname, Tsiktan, it comes from Tizizash. That was the name of the elder. So they put a diminutive in my name, and so it's we said it Tiktan instead of Tidizash. Tidizash is like the long form, the elder.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear of like different naming practices from other indigenous communities, because a lot of these views are repeated, and often, coincidentally, because a lot of times we didn't have a lot of contact, especially with Inuit. We didn't have a lot of uh, relationships with the First Nations, although there were connections like with the Innu and the Cree, because as we know through legislation with the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, it was not only the Inuit, it was the Cree. The Cree were doing the agreement first to the Quebec government, and Inuit got the got their lead and figured like we need to get in on this too, because it's also our rivers and our land. Um, but yeah, otherwise, like between like other indigenous communities, between Inuit and First Nations, I find that there's a lot of repeat kind of practices, even without having any sort of connection for a very long time.
But here it is, we have had more cultural losses because of the residential school that started earlier, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the practice of giving indigenous names is coming back, but it is relatively new, because it was obviously forbidden by the church at the time. But now more and more the parents are willing to give indigenous names to their children.
Yeah.
So let's go back to welcome. Well, if you have a guess do you have a word in Inuit to say not only hello, but in a sense you are the it's good to see you.
It's more vocal. A lot. It's very a lot of vocal cues. Like, of course, there's 8, which is hello, hanupit, and also like the conversation that's being had, or if it's it's you can hear it in the voice, you can see it in the face, you can see it in the body language, and one thing I can really attribute to I'm really happy to see you is like when we say like see you later, is like taku tere lang mibot, is like I'm going to see you again, and that's like really hoping that we will see each other again. Taku tere lang mibot is like I'll see you again, we'll see each other again for sure, which is like a very hopeful thing to say, because life can be a bit difficult sometimes, but when we see family, when we see friends, or anyone that's very close to us, that's kind of like how we like start the conversation by acknowledging each other. And if we haven't seen each other in a long time or go visit community, we say mook, which is like shake hands. So we create a base of contact with each other, which is a very new practice, obviously, because that came from sailors, that came from settlers. Because like when the sailors came out of their ships, they shook everyone's hands, because that was like a very European practice, which is really fun, because my community, way before, it was known as Kuujjuaq, it was known as Fort Chimo, which was kind of like a mispronunciation of Semook, which is handshake.
So there's not really a word to say hello, welcome. I'm happy to see you.
Well, like like just to translate, it's like 8 Tunga Surit, which is welcome. Tunga Surit, be welcome in my space, be welcome in my home. Aliasip Punga Damani Haton Miravilli. Like I'm very happy. Like Aliasip Punga is I'm happy. Like I'm happy. Damani Haton Miravit is because you're here. So just to say that in full, like 8. Sorry, I just got lost. 8 Tunga Surit, Aliasip Punga Damani Haton Miravilli. So hello, be welcome, and I'm happy to see you.
So let's think about it. The designer that are working on the site now, they would like to have some indigenous expression, more or less meaning bienvenue, and I don't know. I have to ask you the authorization, but maybe Tupiq would like on the site where you will perform to have this kind of expression written somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe written in syllabic also, because even if it's not obviously ancestral in this tradition, it has become something very typical of Inuit cultures, modern way to live the culture. So we would like, if it is possible, to have it in syllabic.
For sure. I can see if I have the keyboard. I have the keyboard program to put it in syllabics. I can share that with you, and the term Dungasorit is a very old word. So because we want people to feel welcome. So Dungasorit is literally just meaning like welcome, feel welcome in my space. And when we come to each other's houses, like it's like in the north, when you go in the north, like one thing you'll notice is that we don't knock. People just come in when they want. Like knocking. Like when we hear knocking, we're like, that must be the authorities. But it's a very normal thing for us to go in each other, come unannounced into the house and be welcome with food, water, or just sharing space with each other, being friends and accompanying each other. So there's a lot of companionship in that, and that's like a very old thing, because in the north, in the Arctic, in the winter it's very cold, so we don't want anyone to come in our home and be hungry, and there's a lot of stories of Inuit sharing. Sharing is such a big thing in the way that we live. That's in our language and the practice too. Like there's a lot of stories on Dungasorit, and even if I don't have like a full bite for me to eat, I'm still going to cut that bite in half to share with you, of food, and that's to be expected. It's a very old practice, and it's how we survived in the very cold, desolate Arctic.
I get the feeling that we are different among indigenous communities, Inuit people, and other First Nation peoples, but the sharing practice is pretty similar to each other. Like we share the food the same way that you do, and whenever we visit some other families, we're pretty sure that we can't refuse any food that we are offered. We have to accept it, and it's a way of respecting our host to eat his food.
Yeah,
I don't think it's still practice as a custom, but the first times I went to Madiutenam, no doors were locked, as you said. But when somebody entered a house, he went to the fridge, opened the door, and looked what is in the fridge. Close the door, and then sit down. It was really so we see that it is related with certainly with food and sharing. but it was really funny to see people that just come in, don't say hello, they first go.
Yeah.
I did that in the city. I used to do all the time with my families when I go to visit my aunts or my grandparents or just a friend. And most of the time they told me that do not ask, just go for the fridge. If you're hungry, if you want to drink something, go to the fridge, no problem. But once I got in the city, I was told that it's very rude to go to the other people's fridge. So, okay,
Yeah.
what's
It's very funny because sometimes even I find myself doing that sometimes, but like just yeah, it's a very big culture shock to not have like the same kind of customs and but sometimes automatically in my mind I'm just like my body's just like automatically go check it out. Feel welcome, do like like do as I would if I were at home. And it's very funny just to see kind of like people's reactions, like they're like really checking like what's happening. But it's uh, it's all in good terms. It's not coming from like gotta check what's going on, but just more out of a habit, I guess.
Okay. And also, I want to say again that we are looking forward to have Tupiq ACT performances on the Place des Festivals during the Montreal International Présence Autochtone. And that's really, really a great pleasure to have you and your wow. The troupe you finally manage to work with and to create and to found it, and wow, we are really amazed. And,
yes.
Thank you.
Nakot sa tuwing Kamali, I'm very grateful to be a part of it. I'm so excited to share the space with you guys. It's not my personal first time to be a part of President Autochtone. Last time I was here was in 2019. I had a blast, and I'm very excited to include my colleagues and friends to be part of the programming as well. So we're super excited to be with you guys.
Thank you.
Andre, Tupiq ACT will be at the Place Festival from when? Jusqu'à quand?
I think until the Sunday 14th. I don't know if you start that up. Well, we are on the Place des Festivals from 10 to 15. I don't remember exactly the schedule, but I think they will be there almost every day during the afternoon. Yeah.
August 10 to 14 as far as I know.
That's right.
Yeah. So, like I said, very excited.
If you come to the Place Festival, you're gonna see Saali and Chris will be there too.
Chris, most of our team is going to be participating in this. So there's Christopher, Minnie, and Michael.
And we did said that there will be a skateboard ramp at the festival, and I think we challenge you to do a skateboard with your. Comment on dit chasse?
When you first mentioned that, I was curious. I'm like, what kind of skate park? You guys like literally put an ice rink in the middle of summer, or that's that's where my mind went first.
Yes, we are in contact with several community organizers, especially Andrea, who is in the same Atikamek community, Manoan, than Alexandre. And she introduced the skate in the community. And we invited, I don't know, she is looking for a passport, but we invited Navajo skater Naomi Glass. And it's interesting, on her video, you see her skating in the canyon in Arizona. So that's, and there is contact between different indigenous skaters, and it is seen as circus is for you as not only a physical or a sportive experience, but also a way of development in all the aspects of human development. So there will be instructors around. So if you feel to try it, you will be more than welcome.
I think that's wrap for this episode. We were supposed to finish at 1. But again, I think we'll see you at the Place Festival, and we'll still have our next episode for next week with Voix Parallèle, the exposition of for a podcast. Je sais pas si tu peux expliquer un peu, André.
Alors, tu veux que je parle de Voix Parallèle? Okay, this is an exhibition that has been taught in a way to the general public to understand the notion of indigenous sovereignty. Voix Parallèle, this is a reference to the Turo wampum, and the Turo wampum is the wampum that has been made when the Hollandese arrived in Manhattan. It was not Manhattan at this time, it was Mohawk land. And they had this agreement. You can be a settler here, but we are two nations, and each one in his own canoe is, we are on the same river, we are going in the same direction, but each one in our own governance. So, this is the thematic of the exhibition, and it will be part of the festival, and it will be presented at the Maison du Développement Durable, which is practically in front of the Place des Festivals. So it will be part of our all activities downtown Montreal.
And what is special about this is that it's the first ever exhibition in Quebec that comes from a podcast. The first project that they did is they did 6 episodes of the podcast Voix Parallèle, and then she made it into an exhibition.
It's very cool.
Yeah, so maybe thereabout our podcast, Alexandre, will give birth to an exhibition.
Okay.
Is it time to conclude?
Agir, oui, sûrement. Thank you for being with us, Saali.
Nakormit.
We're going to see you at the Place Festival, and see you next week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.